From the movies we watch to the lives we lead, we're conditioned to think that exciting is the best thing to go for. Our next speaker is Senior Product Engineer Waheed, who's going to argue instead that when it comes to software, boring is best. Waheed.
Yes. My name's Waheed. A few years ago, I went back to college to study computer science. I went back as a mature student, so I did all the things mature students do. I sat up the front, tried to answer every question, shushed all the kids behind me with their chap snats or whatever they call it. Like even computer science students thought we were nerds. But it also led me to have quite a big chip on my shoulder to prove how smart I was and that I deserved to be there. And I made mistakes and tried to build really complex and exciting software. But recently, I've come around to the benefits of building boring software. So about a year ago, we had this feature, Respond Insights. It gives you metrics about your support team, number of conversations, how quickly your team is getting back to them, how happy the customers are with those conversations. And to create those metrics, we run some big fuck-off queries, we calculate the aggregations, and then we cache the results. But as our number of customers grew, the amount of data grew, we're putting more and more pressure on our databases. So I haven't told Ingrid this yet, but I'm pretty sure we account for 2 of those poo emojis there. So I like going home, right? And when I'm there, I don't like being at the beck and call of a bit of software. But this thing was sending me angry late-night emails, wanted all my attention during the day. It was like a dysfunctional relationship. But like any dysfunctional relationship, it was exciting at the start, right? But it wore thin after a while, and I was knackered. So we decided to replace it with something more exciting for our customers, but more boring for us to own. So I jumped straight in, wanted to show off as usual, and I came up with this. This was before any design or research was done. We have listeners passing data into a hand-rolled artisanal ETL pipeline, loading data into our fleet of Redshift clusters, and I stood back, I was like, yeah, I think I'm done here. I can't think of any more ways to show off, man. This is done. But this is nuts. It would have taken ages to build, been a nightmare to own, and cost us a shit ton of money every month. And I was repeating the same mistakes I've been making before, and I wanted to set out and try and fix those mistakes that I was making. So the first thing, I was trying to solve a problem before I actually understood it. And a boring problem is one that's well understood. You can't expect to come up with a solution if you don't understand the problem. Now, like those mature students I was talking about earlier, this solution was trying to answer questions nobody was asking. It was bloated, and it came with a lot of baggage. So in order to understand the problem better, I had to realize that I'm not just an engineer. I have to be a PM. I need to be a designer as well. And you need to get involved with the product decisions that are being made early on so you can have an influence, not just technically and understand the problem technically, because not many are purely technical. From there, I felt I understood the problem, so I thought I'll get back to the solution. And around this time, someone sent me a blog post by a guy called Dan McKinley. It's called Choosing Boring Technologies. And in it, he references Donald Rumsfeld, not me. I don't go around referencing Donald Rumsfeld that much. But he talks about how unknown unknowns have a cost, and converting them to known unknowns is quite time-consuming and expensive. And in the end, it can add complexity to your not only your team, your organization, and your company. So if you're thinking about adding a new technology to your stack that you already have, you should ask yourself these 5 questions. So first of all, how do we deploy it? How do we maintain it? How do we train people to use it? How do we recover when it fails? And then how do we develop with it locally? If you have a technology already in your stack, you probably have really good answers for these already, because we don't want to keep answering the same questions again. We use Elasticsearch quite a lot at Intercom, so I decided to ask the question, could I use existing tech that we use to solve the problem that I'm looking at? And compared with Redshift, it was much better suited for our use case. So I didn't have to answer all these questions again, and it knocked a lot of time off. I could just get on with building a solution. So now with our boring Elasticsearch data store, we get rid of this fleet of Redshift clusters. We don't need a load node anymore. We can just have a simple writer. We went with a much simpler event-based approach. So now we don't need this whole ETL pipeline, and we end up with this really simple architecture diagram. So if you've spent this much effort getting here, there's no point in lashing it all together with a load of complex code. So boring code to me is something that doesn't confuse me. I like this quote by Brian Kernighan. I'll sum it up as, being clever is dumb. I realize now I'm not as clever as I like to think I am, so everything I do is trying not to confuse myself down the road. When you're trying to solve a problem, you want to keep that capacity for solving the problem, not remembering a lot of stuff. So first, use patterns. We're good at recognizing patterns. It means that you can push that down to the lower level stuff, and you don't have to remember what another thing does. Be explicit. Remove levels of indirection, because it just means it's less context that you need to remember. And be consistent. We have this concept of a signal, and everybody on our team, front end, back end, PM, design, all call it signal, same thing. And it just means my brain doesn't have to map something to something else and something else. So I can just get on with solving the problem. So what did boring get us in the end? We estimated like 6 months for the original design, and it ended up just taking us 6 weeks. It was going to cost us $70K a month to own, and now it's just 5. We were able to get a lot more engineers on board and really speed up development. And most importantly, I got some rest, which was good. But actually, no, the most important thing was our customers got this really slick and powerful feature that they've been craving for a long time. So in my opinion, boring gets a bad rap. Like, you think about queuing, Ed Sheeran's music, like, even the definition of boring is boring. Like, come on, man. I think this lad really nailed it here with this. I think it should be easy to understand, familiar, and uneventful. So let's all get excited about boring, but not this lad. Thanks very much.